fine afternoon. It's a little after 2 p.m. Central Time. Feel like if I'm going to get this done, I need to do it right now. It's like, I cannot wait. It's either now or never kind of feeling. So, all right, YouTube has started. Let me jump over to the YouTube app. Check our notifications. Okay. Nothing about me. Nothing saying anything rude. That's always a win. If I can make it a day, someone is not saying something negative. All right, go here. Let me jump over to the YouTube app. Got that. Go to community. All right. That's done. Now close YouTube. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Now let me open up the Sermon Audio website. Okay, hang on. Go to webcast. There's just there's a couple of people broadcasting. We're just one of many. Okay. Now let me open up the Sermon Audio website. All right, we're doing good there. There's just I don't know why that's still playing, but okay. All right. We'll give it a couple of minutes here, and we'll try to get something accomplished on this fine Thursday. Is it a fine Thursday? Is it a good Thursday? Is it a bad Thursday? We'll give it a couple of minutes here, see if anybody tunes in. I've been looking at this new program our podcast hosting site has. Oh man, it's always so frustrating. So my podcast hosting site, I'll just go ahead and throw this out because it's pre-show stuff. Our podcast hosting site, of course, they want you to monetize your podcast. That's what they want because they get a percentage of it, right? So they want you to do ads where you add you basically click on, yes, I want the ads. You tell them where you want them at the beginning, at the end of the broadcast. You remove the middle of the broadcast. Some people will put them in the middle, but if you remove that, you lessen the amount of money you can make. But okay, there you go. And you can make some money. Now, you don't make a lot, right? I mean, you have to be getting some serious numbers to really make it work. I mean, it's worth something. I mean, you're still throwing away some money if you don't do it. But we know what happens, right? If you do commercials, then you get people who complain about the commercials, or you get people who want to skip the commercials. Well, that's because they don't want you to make any money, okay? So they don't want you to get money from commercials, or they think that the commercials are inappropriate, or it really cheapens that it being a theology podcast. So, all right, now someone actually stepped up and sent us a considerable amount of money. And I stated that if someone did that, then I would get rid of commercials, and I did within minutes. And so I kept my word. But over time, then obviously it'll be like, now what do I do? Now what do I do? I got to go back to figuring out what to do here. So today our podcast hosting site contacted me and said, hey, we have a list of sponsors, right? And basically what you do, you pick the objects or the items you want. You promote those items and tell everyone, hey, use the Theology Central promotion code, Theology Central today, and you'll get 20% off. Purchase it today. And you just do a little spoken ad at the beginning or a spoken ad at the end. And if people will purchase it, using your discount code, then you get a commission for all the things you sell. But then that turns again the podcast into you got to be promoting stuff. So it's always frustrating. I get that. I get those kinds of things every single day, finding ways how to make money off your podcast, how to make money off your podcast. But it's so frustrating because there's all kinds of negatives that come with that, right? But at the same time, you need money to be able to podcast. So how do you manage that? I don't know. People love having the podcast there, but people are very, and I've seen this comments on numerous different discussion forums where people just don't want to hear commercials, but then they don't want to support the podcaster. And you're like, well, how is the podcaster supposed to get paid? Can anyone explain that? You want someone producing thousands of hours of content for your entertainment, your edification, but you don't want them to get any support. So like, I don't understand. So, it's always hard. I don't have the answer on how to manage it, but yeah, I've been looking at that today going, so what do I do here? So at this point, I'm not going to do anything and we'll just keep pressing forward and see what happens. But yeah, just so that you know the things I get sent every single day. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think anybody else is going to tune in. So here we go. I think we can try this. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, we go live. And hang on, let me try to close some things out here. Try to close. I got about 900 things open here. We're going to try this. Hopefully it's helpful to everyone. We go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Looking at our world from a theological perspective, this is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Thursday, October the 9th, 2025. It is currently 2:19 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the Theology Central studio located right here in Abilene, Texas. Now, if we get very, very quiet, can you hear it? Do you hear that sound? It should sound like maybe someone weeping, like someone crying. That is the sound of the weeping that comes from the book of Psalms. And we've been talking about the tears in the book of Psalms over the last 2 episodes in this new series that I'm referring to as the Theology of Tears, When the Psalms Weep. And so far we've done 2 parts. And what have we done in those 2 parts? We've kind of introduced the series. We've talked about that between the hallelujahs, between the hymns, you can hear it. It's the sound of weeping. If you feel the pages of the Psalms, they feel damp, they feel wet, because the songs that comfort us most in the book of Psalms were written by people who at times could barely breathe through their own sorrow and their own pain and their own trial and their own tribulation. When we turn to the Psalms and our own pain, what we find there are not polished devotions, but what we find are tears. So what I've tried to do in the last 2 episodes in this series, The Theology of Tears, is to try to map out those tears. I've been trying to take us on the goal was almost a very academic, almost you could say tedious, going from verse to verse to verse, going, okay, here are all the tears in the book of Psalms, placing them in categories so that you could create your own map. And remember the categories? The first category, we call it literal tears. Now, not only is it referring to people crying literal tears, it means that the verses themselves literally uses the word tears. And those verses were Psalms chapter 6, verse 6, Psalm 39:12, Psalm 42:3, Psalm 56:8, Psalm chapter 80, verse 5, Psalm chapter 116, verse 8, and Psalm 126, 5 through 6. And I gave you all of those. And we looked at them. We read each and every single verse. I did not exegete them or try to analyze or anything like that. Did not try to interpret. We were just doing basic observational skills. And I thought we were off to a pretty good start in episode 1. I think I did okay. I thought I really captured the emotion. I tried to capture what I was trying to do. I thought everything was pretty good. And then yesterday was part 2. And we moved from literal tears we moved to verses that talked about weeping. These are verses that use the words weep, weeping, or wept. And I knew that it was a short section, right? There's not a lot of verses that use those particular phrases or those particular words. So I'm like, okay, this will go relatively quick. All right. Do I do this episode? And I was looking at the clock. all right, I don't know. Do I want to do this now? I was kind of conflicted. Do I just come in and say, welcome everyone to part 2. We're mapping out the tears. Today we're looking at verses that use the word weep, weeping or wept. Here are the verses, and kind of be done in about 15 minutes in kind of a very matter of fact way. I mean, I kind of was conflicted about, do I do it that way, or do I try to recapture a little of the emotion again so that people don't lose focus of the emotion that I'm trying to get across? Well, somewhere I was conflicted. Emotion, no emotion, very academic, very matter of fact. Do I expand anything because it's such a short section? And these are things I should have had clearly figured out before I hit the start streaming button. But I hit the start streaming button and I was right there in the midst of my internal conflict, my existential crisis, and boom, I'm live. And so the next thing you know, I start kind of formulating my own, okay, here's why people weep, here's why people cry. Okay, here the church does, and I started kind of formulating these very big ideas, kind of throwing out a complete hypothesis in part 2, which is way before I needed to do that, but it's there. And so it was not perfect. It was very imperfect. It was messy. It was flawed, which fit in with why, well, there are tears and pain and suffering in life as it is. So whatever you think about part 2, it's there. And I in some ways, I think it captures some of the emotion because it captured my own emotion and my own conflict and my own frustration and disgust at myself for not getting it right. Because I really want this series, dare I say, I want it to be perfect. I do want it to be perfect. Because I think there's a lot of people who, well, they have pain. They have anxiety and worry and everything from mental health issues to struggling with all kinds of things and suffering from the pain of life. And so I really wanted this to be very meaningful to them. But maybe an imperfect episode is very symbolic of how imperfect life really is. So I don't know. But I know this, it's now part 3. So I can either just keep looking backwards, but sometimes you can't. I can't go back and change anything, right? I mean, I guess for a podcast, I could go back and delete episode 2 and do it again. But then, I mean, I guess I could create a fake version of life. But this podcast is supposed to try to capture the reality of life, right? It's just, I mean, I've tried to say it so many times. I'm a broken, messed up, sinful human being who just happens to have a microphone. And I turn it on, and it's just me trying to figure everything out, right? So I think it does capture that spirit, whether it's good or not. But now all I know is I can't go. I guess I in some ways I could go back, but it would give a fraudulent way of life, a fraudulent picture of life, right? And a lot of times people's social media does not reflect real life. It reflects a very filtered life. Well, I don't want this to reflect a filtered life. I want it to be real, because the reality is I could clean it up, but it still would not change what happened. It would just keep you from seeing it. But the reality is the reality, and you can't go back and change reality. You can't. No matter what, you can't go back and fix anything. So all I can do is move forward. So here we are, part 3. I hope I've begged everyone to get like a journal and have it the trail of tears, the Psalms bleed, the tears in the Psalms, the Psalm of tears. However, be creative. And I want you to map out the tears. And I want you to put them in these very specific categories. Again, literal tears. Then the second category is weeping, which are verses that include weeping, and wept. And those verses was Psalm chapter 30, verse 5, Psalm 6:6, Psalm 69:10, Psalm 102:9, and Psalm 126:6. So that brings us to today, the third section in our map of tears in the Psalms. This one we'll call crying, or crying out, or crying and crying out. The Psalms frequently use cry, cried, crying, not necessarily for tears. In many cases, the Psalms use these phrases, cry, cried, and crying. You're thinking of actual, you're crying and tears are coming down your face. The Psalms typically use these words, cry, cried, and crying, to describe urgent prayer from suffering. These are vocal tears. When the Psalms use cry, cried, and crying, it's someone crying out. It's tears, but vocal. See, tears can just be silent and just, flow down the side of your face, down your cheek. Or there can be a vocal tear, which is a cry, crying out. And I think these verses kind of capture that idea a little bit better. Now, the two can work together because you can be crying out vocal tears while the actual literal tears are flowing down your face. So I think they can work together. Now, this section has a lot of verses, all right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, I think around 15 different scriptures. Some of them may be multiple verses, and some of these may contain cry, cried, crying multiple times. So we have a lot to map out in this section. So I hope you're ready to go. I hope this will be beneficial. And right now we're mapping out. Now I'm going to try... Well, considering what I did in part 2, you know what? I'm just going to share my thoughts as we go through these, wherever my thoughts take me. If I start kind of expounding or theorizing or creating a hypothesis or creating some kind of, I'm just going to do so. And then once we're done with all of this, we're going to talk about the hermeneutical value and looking at all the tiers. And then we're just going to go all the way back to the very first part of our map. And we're going to start following the map, and we're going to go through passage after passage, looking at the tiers, looking at the historical context, the textual context, trying to know what it means. Does it mean anything to us? Did it have a specific purpose? And see where we end up. I don't know how long this series is going to go. I don't even know if anyone's going to be interested, but I find it very, very, very important to do this. So that's what we're going to do. All right. So are you ready? Today, crying and crying out the vocal tears in the book of Psalms. Let's go to the very first one as we map out this section, the book of Psalms, Psalm chapter 3, verse 4. And we read these words. Psalm chapter 3, verse 4. I cried unto the Lord with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me, as the ESV says. I cried unto the Lord with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill. Now this you can hear. Those are vocal tears. He cried out to God. He cried out to God. Now, this does demonstrate, at least in part, we said this in part 1, that the tears in the Psalms, they fall towards God. They don't seem to fall away from God. There's going to be tears. There's going to be pain. There's going to be suffering, death, disease, tragedy in life. That's a fact, whether someone's saved or not saved. Being saved does not remove you from the tears of life, even though the church sometimes tries to sell it that way. And in part 2, I told you all the 3 main reasons people cry. Now, the point is everyone's going to cry. Everyone's going to weep. Everyone's going to hurt. Everyone's going to suffer. You can allow those tears to either fall away from God or fall towards God. And I think the life of faith is not a life where you avoid the tears and you somehow escape them. It's a life of faith is walking through that path that brings about all of the pain and all the suffering and all the tears. And you cry out, but you cry out towards God. All right. I've already said so far in this series, I think I'm just giving you a picture of the Christian life that's far different than you typically are given. So there's the first one, Psalm chapter 3, verse 4. The King James, I cried unto the Lord with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill. The second one is Psalm chapter 4, verse 1. Psalm chapter 4, verse 1. Hear me when I call, O God of my righteousness, that has enlarged me when I was in distress. Have mercy upon me and hear my prayer. All right. The ESV says, answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness. Now, it doesn't use the word cry, crying, or cried, but it's calling out. It's expressing that same, hear me when I call. It's expressing an emotional kind of calling out. So I'm going to connect it with the cry, crying out, because it's still vocal. It's the vocal tear. It's the vocal crying out. It's the vocal calling out to God. If you want to remove that one, you can. But yeah, I think it belongs to in some way, shape, or form. All right. But once again, it shows the coming to God, not going away from God. Psalm chapter 9. Psalm chapter 9, verse 12. Psalm chapter 9, verse 12. When he maketh inquisition for blood, he remembereth them. He forgetteth not the cry of the humble. He does not forget the cry of the afflicted, as the ESV. All right. Whether it's the King James or the ESV, I'll read it to you again from the King James. Forgetteth not the cry of the humble. The ESV, he does not forget the cry of the afflicted. This seems to point us to the fact that God sees, God hears there, but it's the cry of someone afflicted, the cry of someone humbled, but it's a vocal cry. It's vocal tears. I want to start already expounding these verses and working on it, but that's okay. But once again, it's falling towards God. You notice that. Psalm 18:6. Or maybe that one is more God seeing the crying or hearing the crying. Well, we could go a couple of ways there. All right, Psalm chapter 18, verse 6. Psalm chapter 18, verse 6. In my distress, I called upon the Lord and cried unto my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even into his ears. That's Psalm 18:6. Psalm 18:6, the ESV, in my distress, I called upon the Lord. He heard my cry. Now, these verses are all describing this kind of vocal tears, vocal crying out, but it's all towards God. It's all directed at God. And God seems to be hearing, recognizing, seeing the crying out. How about Psalm 22? Psalm 22, let's go to verse 5. Psalm chapter 22, verse 5. They cried unto thee and were delivered. They trusted in thee and were not confounded. Now, this is referring to a specific number of people. They, and if you look back to verse 3, but thou art holy, O thou that inhabitest the praises of Israel. Verse 4, our fathers trusted in thee. They trusted and thou didst deliver them. They cried unto thee. This seems to be referring to Israel, speaking that they cried unto God. All right? They cried unto him. We can go to verse 24, Psalm 22, verse 24. We have this. Psalm chapter 22, verse 24, for he hath not despised nor abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, neither hath he hid his face from him, but when he cried unto him, he heard. There's the crying unto God again, right? He has heard when he cried to him. Now, that seems to be more specific. Who is this referencing? Is it messianic in nature? We could get into all of those discussions. But note, all these vocal tears, all the vocal tears are to God. They're towards God. They're falling towards God. How about Psalm 27? Psalm chapter 27, verse 7. Psalm 27, 7. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me and answer me. Psalm 27, 7. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy upon me and answer me. Again, it's crying unto God. These are going to be somewhat redundant, but we want to map them all out. We want to see these take on a very specific character and nature and attributes so far in all of these. Go to Psalm 28, 2. Psalm 28, 2. Hear the voice of my supplications when I cry unto thee, when I lift up my hands towards the holy oracle. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. That was I think I jumped to 28 too. Want to make sure we don't forget 27:7. I think I skipped 27:7. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice, have mercy upon me upon me and answer me. And then Psalm 28:2. Hear the voice of my supplications when I cry unto thee, when I lift up my hand towards thy holy oracle. Now, let me give you all of those again, and just in case I accidentally skipped one. Psalm 3:4, Psalm 4:1, Psalm 9 chapter. Okay, let me go through these again. Psalm chapter 3, verse 4, Psalm chapter 4, verse 1, Psalm chapter 9, verse 12, Psalm chapter 18, verse 6, Psalm chapter 22, verses 5 and 24, Psalm 27:7. I think that's the one I possibly skipped. And Psalm 28:2. I apologize if I've messed up your notes, but that's why you should be using pencil, right? Because you make mistakes, not me. Okay, no, I'm joking. All right. Do we have those? I think we're getting my mind is, I think the reason I skipped that one is because my mind right here is already ready to kind of go into kind of a thought here, but I'm trying to refrain until we can get through these. Let's go to the next one, which is chapter 30. Psalm chapter 30, verse 8. I cried to thee, O Lord, and unto the Lord I made supplication. That's Psalm chapter 30, verse 8. Next is Psalm chapter 34. Psalm chapter 34, and this one has Psalm 34 has a couple of verses. Psalm 34:6, the poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. All right, that's Psalm chapter 34, verse 6. Now look at Psalm chapter 34, verse 15. The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open unto their cry. Right? How about verse 17? The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth and deliver them out of all their troubles. That's Psalm 34, verse 6, verse 15, verse 17. All of the crying towards God, and God hearing, and God acting upon the crying. Now, this raises countless philosophical and theological questions and brings up all kinds of problems. We'll get into those when we exegete this, but just you're getting a general concept here. All right, Psalm chapter 40. Psalm chapter 40, verse 1. I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined unto me and heard my cry. That's Psalm chapter 40, verse 1. How about Psalm chapter 61? Psalm chapter 61, verses 1 through 2. Hear my cry, O God, and attend unto my prayer. From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Oh, a lot going on there. Psalm 61, verses 1 through 2. But once again, the cry goes towards God. The vocal tears fall towards God. I'm going to stress that over and over and over and over and over again. All right? Psalm 77. Psalm 77, verse 1. I cried unto God with my voice even unto God with my voice, and he gave ear unto me. Please note 77:1 is really key because it stresses it twice. I cried unto God with my voice, even unto God with my voice. See, whenever we see the phrase cry, crying, calling, these are the vocal tears of the book of Psalms, and it's where people give voice to their tears. Right? They may have the physical tears, but they're giving voice to those tears. They're crying out. Their pain is being given a voice. And that voice is directed towards God. I'm going to just say that. You're going to get tired of me saying it, but it's essential to what I'm going to try to make as a major point when we're done here. Let's go to Psalm chapter 88. Psalm chapter 88. Verse 1, Psalm 88, verse 1, O Lord, God of my salvation, I have cried day and night before thee. Let my prayer come before thee, and incline thou thine ear unto my cry. All right, I didn't even have verse 2 written down until I just noticed I had verse 1 written down. So let's read those again. Psalm 88, verses 1 through 2. O Lord, God of my salvation, I have cried day and night before thee. Let my prayer come before thee, incline thine ear unto my cry. Look at verse 13 of Psalm 88. But unto thee have I cried, O Lord, and in the morning shall my prayer prevent thee. All of these are crying out. You see it. Go to Psalm 102. Psalm 102. Psalm chapter 102, verses 1 and 2. Hear my prayer, O Lord, and let my cry come unto thee. Hide not thy face from me in the day when I'm in trouble. Incline thine ear unto me in the day when I call. Answer me speedily. There's connecting the call with the cry. The call is basically the same thing of crying out, calling out to God. It seems to express an emotional calling, an emotional crying out. Psalm 107. This chapter has a few here. Psalm 107, if I can get there, Psalm 107. Let's look at verse 13. Psalm 107, verse 13. Then they cried unto the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them out of their distress. Look at verse 19. Then they cry unto the Lord in their trouble, and he saveth them out of their distress. And they'll look at verse 28. Then they cry unto the Lord in their trouble, and he bringeth them out of their distress. Oh, there's all that delivering them, saving them, freeing them, all those different concepts brings up so many questions, and we hopefully, I doubt we're going to come up with any good answers, but we will cover that when we exegete them. And then that brings us to Psalm 142, which is the last reference here, and our mapping out of the tears and the Psalms as we map out crying out, calling out, those kinds of concepts. Psalm 142, verse 1, I cried unto the Lord with my voice unto the Lord did I make supplication. Please note the crying out, with my voice. That's been stressed multiple times. All right, so let's go through all of these. You ready? Here we go. Check your list. Check it twice. First reference, Psalm chapter 3, verse 4. Second, Psalm chapter 4, verse 1. The next is Psalm chapter 9, verse 12, Psalm chapter 18, verse 6, Psalm 22, 5 and 24, Psalm 27, 7, Psalm 28, 2, Psalm chapter 30, verse 8, Psalm 34, verse 6, 15, and 17, Psalm chapter 40, verse 1, Psalm 61, verses 1 through 2, Psalm 77, 1, Psalm 88, verses 1 and 2, and verse 13, Psalm 102, verses 1 through 2, Psalm 107, verse 13, 19, and 28, Psalm 142, verse 1. Now, all of these show that a life of faith is not a life absent of crying and absent of pain and absence of trial. It shows those of faith crying, but they cry out to God. Their tears fall towards God. Now, I want to just bring up some basic points. Point number 1 is our Christianity, our discipleship, our raising our kids in a Christian environment. What it should always get across is that no matter what you have done, no matter what trial you're in, what trouble you're in, even if that trial and trouble is your own doing, it's your own failure, it's your own sin, don't be overwhelmed by guilt and shame and run from God. Bring your crying, even if it's because of your own failure, even if it's because of your own doing, even if it's no matter what's the cause, run to God. Do not run away from God. So many times kids, I think, especially kids raised in Christianity, Christianity to them is nothing more than a moral system, right? They don't hear Christianity is sinners who will never not be sinners, who will constantly fail God, but it's a story of God loving them even though they're sinners, sending his son to die for them, and then he kept the law for them, and if they'll put their faith in him, his obedience is imputed to them, so they stand before God perfect even if they're not perfect, and no matter how much they mess up, no matter how much they fail, no matter what they do or don't do, God loves them, and they are saved because of what Christ did. But somehow they hear, well, Jesus may have died for me, but I've got to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S. And if I don't do that, I'm probably going to hell because I'm probably never saved and God's never going to be happy with me. And I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And they just see nothing than a moral system that's nothing more than a performance-based religion. That's all they see. I got to be good. I got to be good. I got to be good. And if you're not good, it's humiliation. It's embarrassment. It's condemnation. It's shame. It's disqualification. It's removal. It's scandal. It's not forgiveness and mercy and love and unconditional love. No, it's you do what's right. And if you mess up, now Christians will say, well, it's not about being perfect. Oh, yes, it is. Because the minute you do certain things, you are done and finished and you're cast to the island of misfits. You're finished. We've got to teach them that our God is a God of unconditional love, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us, and that his blood is stronger than any sin, and no matter what the sin, no matter what the failure, no matter what it is, run to him. Don't find yourself somewhere overcome with guilt and shame, and you're contemplating killing yourself because you can't live with the humiliation and the embarrassment. No, bring your sin to Christ. Bring your tears to Christ. Bring your cries to Christ. That's faith. It's not faith to hide and to pretend. Bring your imperfection. You know what he will say? I love you. I forgive you. I shed my blood for you. But for some weird reason, Christianity has this weird mindset of creating an environment where, oh, no, I can't let anybody know that. Oh, no, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm struggling with this. Shh, don't tell anyone. Hide. The Psalms are like, no, bring your cries to God. Bring it all to God. Cry out to God. Now, I know what you're saying, but they need to change their behavior. You can yell and scream at people to change their behavior all day long. You are delusional if you think that, oh, they need to change their behavior. Okay, let's say they change their behavior. Let's make this very clear. No matter how much behavior is changed, no matter how many T's they cross, no matter how many I's they dot, here's the theological reality. Every single person lives in a perpetual state of sin, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's the reality, folks. You live in that. You say, no, I don't. The Bible says, be holy as God is holy. You have never done that. You never will. You're in a perpetual state of sin. You know what I'm going to say? Love God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. Just write down some basic scriptures, basic laws. You don't keep them. You say, well, they can't keep living in that kind of sin. Well, you're living in your kind of sin. The fact is, we're all living in sin. And the fact is, Christ died to save sinners by forgiving our sin. And not by making us better, but by declaring us perfect by a legal declaration known as forensic justification. And if we don't get this across, we push people away. We mess up so bad. I've told the story so many times, but I'm going to say it again because it's one of my, I will hate myself for the rest of my life for how I messed this up. All right. But it was an awkward situation. I'm not excusing it, but I messed it up so bad. I mean, I got lots of things I've done in my life I'll never forgive myself for. But this is just one of many. So I'm a pastor, right? I'm also in the military. One of the people who work with me in the military, she has made a profession of faith in Christ. She's joined the church. I've baptized her. She even plays the guitar for our Sunday morning worship at times, just to do a few things. But she's there every Sunday. I see her at work. I'm helping disciple her. You know, everything's going great. Everything's going wonderful. Everything's going good. She started missing a little church, not saying as much to me at work, but, no big deal. You don't want to get into anyone's business. You don't want to pry. Everything's going good. And then late one night, 11 o'clock, 12 a.m., I don't know. Someone who's kind of like her supervisor, who also, in the military, one of her, I can't remember how she reported to him, but he was over her. He also goes to our church. He gets a call from the woman's husband, who's not a believer, who doesn't go to church. And he calls and says, hey, my wife is out with another man. She's basically having physical relations with this other man. So then he calls me. It's like, we got a problem. Her husband. So we have to go to her house to talk to her husband. You talk about awkward, oh, my wife, the good Christian, is out with another man right now while I'm here. Oh, she's in the military, which at the time adultery, was could get you kicked out. Just the whole thing is awkward. Like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And we're like, what do we do here? And he wants her we need to find her. So we're driving around trying to figure out where she could be, trying to call her saying, hey, this is getting ugly, because he could have then contacted the First Church saying, hey, my wife's having an affair. The whole thing could have just blown up into a big kind of military type scandal. But here I am. And not only I'm in the military with her, I'm the pastor. And it's like, oh, this is so ugly. I don't know. I can't remember exactly all the details if we finally got in touch with her or not that night. I think we did. And I think she knew that we all knew, and that her husband had called, and the whole thing had blown up and gotten ugly. And it was just uncomfortable for everyone, right? Like, that's not the way you want it to all go down. It was just an ugly situation because you got the military aspect of it. You got the church aspect of it. And you got to try to keep those separate. But what do you do? Like, from the military standpoint, you're like, hey, you're going to destroy your entire career. This could come home now. What are you doing? And then from the spiritual standpoint, you're like, your unbelieving husband calling me, it kind of puts me in an awkward position. What do you do? Well, the very next day, so we're out till 1, 2 in the morning trying to contact her, calming her husband down. The whole thing is ugly, right? So 1, 2 in the morning, we're trying to do all of this. We're trying to calm it all down. We're trying to get it all under control. And then what takes place is crazy. And I apologize that a call's coming in. Of course, something else has got to go wrong in this series. All right. So everything is going as it's as messy as it can be. But the very next morning, pretty early, we have to meet up at a certain location to get on buses. I think it was the Veterans Day parade that we were going to have to go to. So, I get up the next morning, put on my uniform. I walk up, and there she is. She looks at me. I look at her. I think I maybe say hi. It's very cold. It's very indifferent. It's not good. And to this day, I regret that. Because you know what I should have done? I should have looked at her in the face and said, hey, brother, you're a brother in Christ. I love you, but I'm in uniform. So I can't really bring the church thing into, you see, this is an awkward thing. I'm in uniform. I can't be pastor. I can't be Christian right now, right? But maybe I should have just walked up and just opened my arms, and maybe she would have given me a hug. Maybe she wouldn't have. But then see, we're in the military. Should I even be doing that? I don't know. Maybe she would have used that against me. I don't know. But maybe I should have just said, hey, God loves you. You're forgiven in Christ Jesus. Maybe I should have, but I did not know what to do. And to this day, I regret. She ultimately, I think she leaves her husband, she leaves the church, and the whole thing just turns ugly. And I don't know what ultimately happened to her, but it's just, the whole thing just ultimately just fell completely and utterly apart. And to this day, it's like when I saw her right then, she already knew that she'd been exposed and caught by everyone, right? Her supervisor, her husband, me, who knows how many other people in the military knew. I mean, the whole thing had turned to a scandal. I mean, it was ugly. But you know what she needed at that time? Compassion, love, forgiveness, mercy, not condemnation, especially from a Christian perspective. God's love is greater than our sin. His grace is greater than sin. Christians, when you fall, when you fail, when your kids mess up, they should want to run to God, not away from God. I'll never forget a situation when I was a teenager and someone looking at someone going, you come to church? You come after what you've done? No, church is exactly where you should be. When scandal happens, when sin happens, you don't run away from the church, you run right to the cross. The cross is where broken sinners come, not only perfect people. Tears and crying in the Psalms are going towards God, and we have to know that we don't just cry out to God. We don't just cry. We don't just weep. We can come to God because it's the cross where the blood was shed for broken sinners like you and me. And that, it doesn't, you say that makes you a hypocrite. No, it makes you a hypocrite when you're pretending not to be a broken sinner. You're not a hypocrite when you're claiming I am a broken sinner, and I know it, and I know it's only the blood of Christ that forgives me. Being a forgiven sinner does not make you a hypocrite when you're admitting that you are a forgiven sinner. It's when you claim that you're not a sinner and you're sinning. And we're all sinning. So stop pretending that we're not. We need a Christianity that will let people run to him, not away from him because of shame and guilt. Now, you may have to run away from Christians. Now, this is the sad part. Christians may not be so forgiving. They may gossip about you, slander you, think you should be disqualified. Who knows what they want? They want you branded. They want you stoned. They want you crucified. They want you dragged through the mud. They don't want anything to do with you because you are unclean. They want you to run around the town screaming, unclean, unclean. And they're like, yeah, you vile, pathetic, worthless sinner, as they sit on their little high thrones of righteousness thinking they're so good. Don't worry about them. Don't let Christians keep you away from the cross. Go around the Christians. Walk right through the midst of them as they jeer at you, talk about you, and go, oh, I know what you did. Let them point their little fingers at you. Let them put their nose up in the air because they're so righteous. That's okay. You get to the cross, you get to his blood. Because there's forgiveness. No matter what you've done, no matter how much you've messed up, there is forgiveness. Our cries should drive us to him, not away from him. All right, so that's a very first point I want to make. Second, I want you to remember the things that cause us to cry out. The major categories of the reason we weep, we weeping, we cry, we have tears. The major reasons we do this is because we live in a world that's fallen. So guess what? This is the reality of the world we are in. Pain, sickness, disease, death, injury, tragedy. And that includes mental health issues, right? All of those issues. We're in a fallen world and everyone is touched by those to some level. You're going to die. You're going to get sick. You're going to break a bone. You get tragedy. There's all mental health issues, whatever the case may be. And that creates great amount of pain, right? Great amount of pain. Second is because of the sin of others. When people hurt us, stab us in the back, lie, all the horrible things they can do to us, right? So sometimes we cry because of the actions of others toward us, right? The third is our own failure and our own sin. Those are the three main reasons we cry, we weep, we cry out. We're all of it. Those are the three major reasons. Because we live in a fallen world, there's pain, tragedy, death, suffering, disease. Other people do horrible things to us, and we commit our own sin. Now, we should cry and put our tears falling towards God. Now, the church will say, oh, yes, and he's going to deliver you from all your troubles, as it says in the Psalms. He's going to make everything right. The problem is they try to give you that promise of deliverance and fixing everything in the here and now. And as I said yesterday, that's a problem. So, number one, we have to have a Christianity where we can run to God and our tears can always go towards God no matter what we have done. No matter what we're doing, and no matter how long we continue to do it, we should be able to run to God. Number two, we have to remember the categories for the reasons we cry. And number three, the reason we cry out to God and the reason we can take this promise that he will deliver us out of all of our troubles is because we're absolutely guaranteed to be delivered from all of that. Physical pain, suffering, disease, mental health issues, all of that, we're going to be delivered in glorification. We're going to get a new body, no more sickness, no more mental health issues, no more tragedy, no more death, no more tears. It's all going to be gone. Second, when we get to glory, there's not going to be any more sin, no more sin from others, and our own sin is going to be completely gone because our sinful nature is going to be completely eradicated. So we can cry to God with the knowledge that there will be full deliverance. We just can't believe that there's going to be deliverance here and now because that's not the way it's going to work. Run to God. Remember the reasons we cry and remember deliverance is coming, just not here and now. Now, there's far more I could say. Far more. But that is section 3 on our map. So section 1 on our map is literal tears. Section 2 is weeping. Weeping, wept. And section 3 was crying, crying out, cried, crying. And we looked at all of the verses, and I'm not going to go through them again. You can have it. And I've given you some very practical concepts that should be taken from it. There's far more I could say, far more I want to say, far more I want to express. But never allow, and I will end with this, your guilt, your shame, your pain. One, do not take that and then somehow throw it at God and make God the bad guy. That's your pain. That's your guilt. That's your shame. Don't make God the bad guy. See God as the one who died for you and accept his unconditional love and be grateful and run to him. I think sometimes what we do is we're so overcome with our own guilt, our own shame, our own hurt that we talked about this, about projecting it. So what we do is we don't necessarily project it directly at God, but we feel like we can't run to God because we can't accept such a perfect love from God. So then we say, well, the church did this and Christians did this and Christians do that. And we use that so we never have to run to God and accept that love. No, run to his unconditional love and accept it. And who cares? Don't try to find some way to, in a sense, protect yourself so that you don't have to accept that unconditional love from God. Accept that unconditional love from God. I don't care what the church has done. I don't care what Christians have done. Don't use that, either one, to protect yourself because you can't accept the unconditional love, or two, their actions somehow keep you from God. No, run to his unconditional love. There is perfection There's perfect love, perfect forgiveness, perfect grace, perfect mercy, perfect washing away your sin as far as the east is from the east from the west, and throwing it into the deepest ocean. We come up with weird ways we deal with this. But we've got to be able to cry to God. Cry to him in open, honest ways. All right, I'm going to go. I do apologize for the call that came in the middle of this, because again, this is not going to be, I want every one of these episodes. Isn't it amazing? The more I want an episode to be perfect, the more imperfect it becomes. And it's almost like something is working to maybe to try to, I don't know, make a point, but it makes me very upset. But no, seriously though, my daughter was calling, and all of those calls, you did not see it. 5 calls came in on my iPad from my daughter, and then the house phone rings. So it means something probably is not good. So I need to go find out. Hopefully there's no tragedy that has occurred. And if there is, see, that's how life goes. So I'm going to hope there's no tragedy. So I'm going to call and try to find out. Thank you for listening. I hope you'll give this some serious thought and meditation. Consider that map. Meditate on all the verses about tears and crying out in the Psalms, and try to consider what that could possibly mean for you and for me. Thanks for listening, and God bless.